History remembers him as the King of Kings. Strip away the gold mask, and what's underneath is a man who couldn't survive being wrong in front of other people, and who was willing to burn an empire rather than admit it. Picture a commander so obsessed with status that losing a single argument mattered more to him than winning the war. A king who took another man's prize not out of desire, but to prove that no hero, however great, could outshine him. This isn't the story of Troy's fall. This is the story of how one wounded ego infected an entire army, then followed that army home and detonated inside his own bloodline. The war didn't end when Troy burned. It just changed addresses. 9 years into the siege, plague tears through the Greek camp. Soldiers who never touched a Trojan blade collapse in their tents. The cause is spoken aloud, in front of every man present. Agamemnon angered Apollo by refusing to return a captured priest's daughter. He agrees to give her back, but watch what happens the moment he has to. He doesn't absorb the loss. He redistributes it onto someone else, so the men watching never see him as the one who yielded. He chooses Briseis, Achilles' battle prize. In the Greek world, a warrior's gerrus wasn't decoration. It was evidence, proof that his blood had bought something real. Take a man's gerrus, and you're not stealing an object. You're telling every soldier on that beach that his sacrifices only count as long as the king allows it. Kleos, the eternal glory every Greek bled for, gets traded in a single moment for a flex of dominance nobody asked him to make. The war for civilization becomes, in one breath, a war to protect one man's fragile self-image. Achilles doesn't rage, he doesn't threaten, he simply stops fighting. And something worse than an enemy enters the Greek ranks: doubt. If the greatest hero alive can be discarded on a king's whim, what is anyone else's honor actually worth? Agamemnon mistakes the silence for victory. He still has the throne, the banners, the generals. What he's lost is invisible and irreplaceable. The thing no crown can force back into existence: respect. And this miscalculation is about to cost him someone he never intended to lose. Because pride doesn't destroy people directly. It destroys the choices that would have saved them. Without Achilles, the Greek lines start breaking. Hector senses it before anyone else. Not weakness in their shields, but in their belief. Nestor and Odysseus both warn Agamemnon that no crown wins a war alone. That trust is the only real weapon he has left. He resists apologizing as long as he can, because to him, admitting fault feels indistinguishable from surrender. He believes his throne carries divine backing simply because Zeus allowed him to lead the expedition. That belief becomes armor against every warning thrown his way. Seers ignored, omens dismissed, counsel treated as insult. A king who has convinced himself he cannot be wrong stops listening entirely, and every warning that could have saved him arrives too late by design. Desperate to force the Trojans back without giving Achilles the satisfaction of returning, the Greeks send Patroclus into battle, wearing Achilles' own armor. A borrowed legend meant to trick both armies into believing the real warrior has returned. It works. For one blazing moment, the fractured army fights like it's whole again. Then Patroclus, drunk on that momentum, pushes farther than he was ordered to. Hector meets him, sees through the bronze, and ends him. When Achilles hears Patroclus is dead, there's no scream, no immediate fury, just a silence heavier than the loss itself. Because he understands the chain instantly. Patroclus died because Achilles left the field. Achilles left because Agamemnon stole his honor. One king's insecurity traveled the length of an entire war until it found the one person Achilles actually loved. What comes next isn't heroism. Achilles returns to battle, and Hector falls beneath him. But the war doesn't stop there. Achilles ties Hector's body to his chariot and drags it around the walls of Troy, again and again, in full view of both armies. This is the true cost of Agamemnon's pride laid bare. He wanted a war that proved his greatness. What he built instead was a machine that turned heroes into something closer to butchers. The city eventually falls, but by then, nobody celebrates like they imagined they would. The victory Agamemnon spent a decade chasing arrives looking exhausted, not glorious. And the atrocities committed inside Troy's burning walls are the final receipt for 9 years spent fighting under a commander with no moral flaw left. Here's what makes this worse. This wasn't the first time Agamemnon sacrificed someone he loved for his own ambition. It was the second. Years earlier, becalmed winds refused to carry his fleet to Troy at all. The seers demanded a price only he could pay. Not gold, not cattle, his own daughter, Iphigenia. And he paid it because turning back, admitting the expedition was cursed before it even began, was a humiliation he couldn't stomach either. So when Agamemnon finally sails home a conqueror, drunk on treasure and victory songs, he walks into his own palace, believing the story is over. He has no idea what's waiting for him. His wife has spent 10 years alone with her grief over the daughter he handed to the altar. And that grief has curdled into something with a blade in it. The same blindness that let him ignore seers, ignore Achilles, ignore the cost of his own pride at Troy, follows him through his front door. Because wars fought without honor don't end when the fighting stops. They just relocate into the one place a king never thinks to defend, his own house. Every collapse in this story traces back to the same root. A leader who could not survive being wrong in front of other men, and who made everyone around him pay the interest on that fear. Agamemnon didn't lose his legacy to Hector's spear or Achilles' grief. He lost it to his own reflection, decades before Clytemnestra ever picked up a blade. So tell me, when a leader chooses his pride over his people, his gods, and even his own children, is that still leadership? Or is that just a crown sitting on top of fear? Leave your answer below. I read every one of them.